Hey everybody, it's Paul Yeager, and this is the M2M podcast, a production of Iowa PBS and the Market to Market TV show. Now, hold on just a minute. I know I have a device somewhere here that will tell me what have been the past episodes of this podcast. And, oh, look at that. I have Keeping the Doors Open. See, look, there's a reflection in that little meta. Keeping the Doors Open in Light of COVID-19. That is talking with Ryan Burchett from the Mississippi River Distilling Company. We'll talk with him. We also have an episode about cotton, the aristocratic fraternity, with the discussion out of Mississippi and Texas and how that industry is going to play in 21. Also a recap of 20. Retirement looks good on Ken Anderson, longtime Brownfield News reporter. We discuss with him. Now, today we are going to get into the business of hogs, the environment, and a new campaign from the NPPC. We are going to be talking with Lori Stevermer of Easton, Minnesota. She's a producer south of the cities, north of I-90. How close? Very close. You may have actually seen her house and farm as you've driven by on I-90 before. We're going to be talking about farming today for tomorrow, how this campaign is both one looking at the environment as well as the nature of putting hogs in the business and in the environment and how the two go together. So we will discuss that in this installment of the M2M podcast. And again, if you have any feedback, hit us up, market at iowapbs.org. Now, let's chat with Lori. Lori, it's winter, and everybody thinks in Minnesota that it's all hockey, but football plays a pretty fun role for people. So when you look at the Super Bowl, do Vikings fans still just not even want to talk about that week? Is that still always such bad thoughts?
You know, for some of us, there is that spot in our hearts that the Vikings have torn and crushed a number of times that we can't get over. But someday maybe we'll get our Super Bowl win. But actually, I went to the University of Minnesota, and we have two graduates playing for the Buccaneers this year. So for those of us that are University of Minnesota fans, Gopher fans, we have something to be excited about.
And that's how you have to connect it. I mean, that's always an Iowa thing. We always try to, is there an Iowa connection? Well, yeah, the left tackle or the, because we don't have the professional sports teams like you do in Minnesota. So you're in Easton, which is south of the cities, near Blue Earth. Is that right? Do I have my geography right?
Yeah, so our farm is about 5 miles north of I-90, halfway in between Blue Earth and Albert Lee. So we're really in the southern part of the state.
So then at that point, do you say you identify with a lake nearby, or is that for the people north of the cities?
Well, we are the land of 10,000 lakes plus, so I think all of us identify to some degree with lakes, but I would say the nearest lakes, the bigger ones, are probably 30 miles away from us. So
okay. Not in the backyard or anything like that?
Not in the backyard. Some smaller lakes, within 10, 15 miles, but the bigger ones are a little further away.
So which county are you in then?
We're in Faribault County.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then is that your home area where you grew up?
So I actually grew up in Truman, which is about 35 miles west of here, so over by Fairmont, Minnesota. So I'm not too far from where I grew up.
And I understand third generation for you. So tell me about the two generations before you. Sure.
So this is the farm that my husband grew up on. So his grandpa, Ed, started the farm in 1916, built the house. So the house we're in is just a little over 100 years old. And then Dale's parents took over the farm, Bernie and Celie Stevermer. And then Dale came back to farm in the late 80s. And he had gone to Iowa State, so he's an Iowa State grad. And we met and then came out to the farm and started living in the house in 1992. So we've been out here since 1992. So, yeah, we're the third generation of Trails End Farm.
And is there a fourth on the horizon?
We'll see. Our kids are early in their careers. So Brett, our oldest, is 26. He's a mechanical engineer. Adam is almost 24. He's in extension with Minnesota and 4-H, and Beth is at Iowa State in her junior year. So, we've encouraged them to pursue their interests. We would like them to come back and farm if they want to, but that's got to be their decision. I hope they do. Hope someone does, but time will tell.
Is Beth, I mean, do you feel confident about Beth and what she might do come back?
She is a food science major, so she likes food. She's always liked the farm, though, too. She's helped my husband Dale with some of the crop side on her spring break, or excuse me, her winter break. She actually helped him sell pigs one day. So, we'll see. I think between her and Adam, probably either of those two. Yeah.
It's no pressure. Well, the photo I have here, that's my home place in Northeast Iowa where I grew up. And that's as close as I get now, is putting a picture of it behind me. My sisters, none of us have gone into it. This is as close as I've gotten into agriculture, is just asking people about their roles. And did you always aspire that this is something you wanted to do, was get into agriculture?
Well, I grew up on a farm, and we had cows and pigs, and then we sold the cows. We just had pigs and corn and soybeans. So, I mean, people ask how long we've been farming, and I say forever, or like all my life. So I knew I wanted to be involved with farming. When I graduated from the University of Minnesota, I had an animal science degree, and I went the egg business route. So I got into sales with the feed company and had a chance to work with farmers. And then, doing my job, met this really nice farmer here in Easton, Minnesota, named Dale Stevermer. And then things took their course. We got married, and I ended up being on the farm anyway. So it's all worked out very well for me. But I would say that I'm a farm kid at heart, and I've been fortunate to be able to marry a farmer and continue to do that.
So if we would open up that window behind you, what would we see? What's on the home place there?
So when the window behind me faces the road, so you'll see a little bit of our yard and then the road for our neighborhood. So what I'm looking past you, I would be looking out on our farm, then our buildings and the garden and things like that.
And what's all on this operation here? It's not just hogs, is it?
So our farm here, we finish about 5,000 pigs a year for the Compart family. So we have about 3 barns out there with the pigs in. We have 2,000 head here at one time. And then we also raise corn and soybeans. And, most of those acres are close to us. We have one farm that's a little further away. But everything's pretty close here. And Dale does a lot with cover crops and no-till. So we're willing to try a few different practices along the way.
About the hog industry, that's kind of how we're talking. You have gotten involved with NPPC. How did that come about?
It was just a natural progression. I was a member of the Minnesota Pork Producers Association for 9 years, served as president, and really enjoyed being part of that, being part of leadership, but more importantly, working on behalf of other farmers, especially when it comes to public policy and advocating. And, it was the right time in my life. The kids were graduated from high school, some in college, some out. So I really felt like I could take that next step and donate my time to the national organization. So I've been on the board for about 2 years now, and it's been a great experience.
And that is something that when you start on a state or a county organization, that's one thing. Just taking that initial step, what led you to say, like you just said, donate your time, because it is a big requirement.
It is. And my husband had been active on the state organization also. And, actually, if I go a step back in my high school years, because we raised pigs, I was familiar with our county organization. So, once again, it's always been kind of part of what we did, aware of the organizations. Early years were more promotional probably, but as time's gone on, we've been more involved with the public policy aspect of it. So really, once again, familiar with it and, liked what it did. And more importantly, just really felt that if I'm going to be involved as a farmer, both now and in the future, it's important to get involved with these organizations that work on behalf of farmers, because they need leadership. We need leadership.
Well, the photos behind you, you have the state of Minnesota and the hog. And the two go together like they go together in some of those other states. One has to get along. we talk about Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. I mean, the environment and water has long been something I've always felt Minnesotans have cared about. And agriculture has to play a role in that discussion. How do you see the two coming together?
Well, first of all, water is a part of our heritage in Minnesota, the 10,000 lakes. So many of us have memories of going up north to the cabin on the lake with family and friends. I mean, we did that for a number of years with my grandparents, my parents, and then our kids. So it is part of our heritage. But also as farmers, we have a responsibility to be good stewards of the land. And I would say that the farmers have been adapting technology and looking ahead to say, what can I do to continue to keep the land fertile, to best use my resources, and to be a good neighbor. So that's where it really all kind of fits well together. It's top of mind for us, and we really appreciate being part of that discussion now and that opportunity to share with others what we're doing.
Well, currently NPPC has started the Farming Today for Tomorrow campaign, and that was something you always hear about these campaigns, and you just wonder, how do you really make a difference in taking something that's on paper to make it happen in Easton, Minnesota, or Blue Earth, or Duluth? Pick a town.
Yeah. Well, it may be a campaign on paper, but to those of us that are involved with it, I mean, it really is what we do. So, the campaign Farming Today for Tomorrow is an excellent slogan, and not just a slogan, but like I said, something that we do. And I don't think people realize what we've done. So the National Pork Board had a great study that they did, look back over 50 years. And in that time, we've gone from producing 12 billion pounds of pork to 24 billion. So we've doubled our production, but we've used 76% land, about 25% less water, and we've reduced our carbon footprint by about 7.5%. So we're doing more with less resources. And people don't know that. I mean, like, we're all humans. We don't know what we don't know, right? But when somebody takes the time to say, hey, this is what's happened and this is what we're doing, then I think you get a greater sense of appreciation and understanding for that.
Well, Walt Disney used to say, you can't give the answer of I don't know. But for those of us involved in agriculture, you can say, I don't know, but let me find out. And I like what you just said about, we don't know what we don't know. What don't we know about the relationship between the hog industry and water and air and those things? What is it that we've learned in just, say, the last 5 years about those two trying to work together?
Sure. Well, I would say in terms of the animal, we've learned how to better feed that animal. Pigs are very well fed. They get balanced diets. So, in the past, it was slopping the hogs. It's not that way anymore. I mean, we've got scientists, and I work with them, that are balancing diets on energy and lysine and giving that pig what it needs for its age and weight. And we use enzymes, we use organic trace minerals to reduce the amount of nutrients that might be excreted into the environment. The other thing is genetics have improved so much. It used to take 4 pounds of feed to produce a pound of gain. Now we're down to 2.4. So we're doing better for the animal and the resources that go into the animal. But then the manure that comes out of that animal, in the last 5 years, the technology to analyze that manure for the nutrients that are in that, to analyze our soil and what it has, and to look at the crops that we want to produce and to provide a balance, to vary the amount of manure that we put on the soil depending on the crop production. I mean, that technology is fascinating. And then you throw in GPS for planting and harvesting and knowing just how much fertilizer a particular piece of ground needs based on its production. I mean, that type of technology has just exploded in the last 5 years, and it really allows us to utilize our resources a lot better. And when you start talking about that to some people, especially people that understand technology and GPS, I mean, they are just like, wow, I never realized that.
Well, that's in 5 years. But if I go back 10 years, 15, 20, what some people didn't know, maybe they knew, or they felt that they thought they knew your industry and they weren't on your farm. They weren't in your neighborhood. They were somewhere else. And they were at, whether it was St. Paul or Des Moines or Lincoln, and they might have been complaining about the odors and the water and the answers. Clearly, the hog industry has done a lot to address a lot of those issues, because we still are seeing expansion of growing facilities on your farm and other farms like that. So the industry has been able to answer questions. What do you think are the bigger questions that you're still getting, that you still want to answer for someone who might not understand everything that you might be telling us?
Sure. I think people need to understand that we're fairly regulated as an industry. So you talked about building. We just can't put buildings wherever we want. I mean, there are setbacks to other buildings, to other farms, to water. So we're restricted in where we can build and the size we can build and things like that. So we're fairly heavily regulated. I think also, people don't realize maybe the care that goes into animals and the oversight there, and how we utilize those resources. I think once again, sometimes people are like, yeah, you just have animals out there, you got pigs. But, my husband goes through the barn every day, records the temperatures, he records the feed deliveries, he records if he's given any medications. And so the amount of oversight that's there and the care to once again be mindful of what's going into those animals, and then consequently what might go into the environment, is a lot more detailed than people know.
What about here in 2020, as we look back at that year? And it was a challenge, not even for any of the items that we've just talked about. I mean, environment wasn't a big topic. Maybe it was in January, February, but it became about the world, and it became the stories of, I know we reported it, of producers panicked, figuring out what they're going to do with these baby sows that, or the baby pigs that were coming in, and the sows. What do I do with them? Where's my demand? Where's my end facility? How am I going to process all of this? When you look back at 2020, how are you going to describe that to someone?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've kept a little journal of, early COVID, mid COVID, just trying to write some notes so that, 10, 20 years from now, I can share it with my grandkids. And, I would say early COVID, pivot was a word we used a lot. Those packing plants had to shut down, worker safety, obviously key, but, we pivoted because we're efficient in our food system and the way those animals go to market and then consequently go to the grocery stores. We had to pivot and change, and we did, and we changed very well. And that's just a tribute to the system. And I think that brought up the resilience because we were resilient. I mean, we faced the challenges and we made the changes, and producers donated pork, producers banded together to find places to market their pigs, and we got through it. And I would say that now looking back, pride is a word I would use. I mean, I'm proud of what our industry did to stay focused and resilient, and to stay sustainable, and to allow us to be here for 2021 so that we can be here in the future.
As 2020 wrapped up, the story started to appear about China buying U.S. grain to feed their operation, as they are quickly trying to get their operations after ASF back online. They're a huge producer. There's no denying that. But so are the Americans in U.S. pork industry. How, in 21, does the U.S. pork industry answer the call to stay competitive and keep putting that product out both on my table in the United States and those around the world?
Sure. And, we answer the call by doing the things we have been doing that have made us really the low cost producer in the world. I mean, we're doing things well, and we need to keep on getting better. But, but we're doing things well. Our production practices, our health practices. I would say part of what helped keeps us around for 2020 and beyond is a level playing field. So allowing us to have trade without tariffs and barriers, without having too much regulation on us. We're not saying no regulation. We understand we need regulation, but not too much regulation, not being over-regulated. That's why being part of the discussion on climate change and things that might be happening is very important for us. But I would say, continuing to keep our eye on the future and what new is coming our way, what advances in how we take care of the pigs, in equipment, in monitoring systems, and always being open to change, because that's what helped make us a really efficient industry, and that's what's going to keep us viable in the future too.
We are recording this at exactly the same moment that Tom Vilsack is having his USDA nomination hearing. Mm-hmm. He's coming back into the job, but he's in a new administration. You get a chance to put the lobby hat on now, Lori. What do you want the new administration to know about your industry and what your needs are? I mean, you just talked about it, a level playing field, lower tariffs, that type of thing, and limited regulation, but needed regulation. What's the next message that you want the new administration to hear from where you sit there in Minnesota?
Sure. I would first of all say, let us be part of the discussion. Let us have a seat at the table. So, the recent executive order by President Biden that was climate change focused, that is asking for input from farmers into USDA on potential farming practices. Let us be part of that. Number one, we know what goes on the farm. We're working on those. We have an idea what works and doesn't work. We'll be the ones that implement them. Let us be part of the process and hear our voice. When it comes to carbon trading and potential programs like that, once again, let us be part of the conversation. It's not that we're against them. We just don't want regulations imposed upon us. I mean, if it's voluntary and it's an exchange that works for all parties, then yes, we definitely want to take a look at that. So I think those are probably a couple of things that I want to say right away.
As you and your husband discuss many topics, I mean, when you're in business together, in addition to a relationship together, you discuss things. What do you think about carbon exchange?
We do discuss it. And like I said, we've done a number of things with cover crops and some low-till practices, and we are open to it. I mean, once again, it's got to be a good exchange, but I think it's something that we're open to. We're a fairly small farm. We only have 450 acres. So if there are practices or incentives for the way we farm that allow us to generate additional revenue, so additional revenue that keeps us viable in the future, yeah, we want to take advantage of that.
See it as an opportunity.
Definitely an opportunity, yes.
I want to circle back finally here on the campaign again. It is targeted in the Beltway and outside of it. Is the message the same to the two? Different audiences?
That's a good question. So I think, in my opinion, it is a similar message. I mean, whether I'm talking to someone in the Beltway, when I get the opportunity to go out to Washington, D.C., or whether I'm talking to someone at the Minnesota State Fair, I'm still talking about what we're doing and bringing that realization. Now, the public officials in Washington, D.C. maybe have more of an influence on what I can do. They make the laws, but the message is still the same. I had someone at the Minnesota State Fair come up to me and say, I kind of hate to ask you this, but what do you do with the manure from the pigs? And I was like, great question, great opportunity. And explained how we used it on our farming for our crops. And they walked away like, I didn't realize that. That's great. They felt good about it. And I think that same thing would hold true for an elected official in DC inside the Beltway, to know that we use that manure as a fertilizer, that reduces our need for chemicals, synthetic fertilizers, and that all fits into that environmental stewardship with land, air, and water. That's a great message that everybody, I think, can hear and appreciate.
I like to have conversations as part of this podcast at the state fair. I've done it a couple of years now, where I've talked with different industries involved in agriculture, and that's always one of the topics is the opportunity for outreach. Now, the Iowa State Fair is still a heavy ag-based fair. Mm-hmm. The Minnesota State Fair, by reputation, is a little more urban and a little more based on food, which is also part of agriculture. So there is an absolute partnership there.
Yeah.
But did you miss not having the Minnesota State Fair in 20?
I absolutely missed it. And I had a picture hanging before, but there was this picture of kind of this, the icons from the state fair with their heads hanging down, missing 2020. And, our kids were in 4-H. We had the opportunity to exhibit at the state fair. We've done a number of consumer outreaches at the state fair, and I absolutely did miss it. I will be upfront and say that. But, it wasn't just telling stories or having conversations. It's sharing values with those individuals. And I mean, when you click on something, when you talk about what you do, whether it's the way we handle, our animals or the environment, and that resonates with what they do, and you're both like, yeah, I want clean water. We're the land of 10,000 lakes, and yeah, I want to eat healthy pork. I mean, that is the best feeling when you connect with someone and you realize you both share the same value.
Because if you don't care about your own land, you're not going to have a livelihood. So of course you are caring about the land, and that's also a good message that you share.
Well, it is. And, we started off by saying Trails End Farm started in 1916. It's over 100 years old. So think of that. We're a 100-year-old business. I mean, any business that's 100 years old, number one, needs to be recognized. But number two, if we didn't have sustainability in our mind with the way we cared for the animals, the environment, the land, the water, and also I put profitability in sustainability. So if we can't be profitable, we're not here for 100 years. So yeah, it's absolutely part of what we do.
What's the rest of the day like, Lori? What do you got?
The rest of the day, I have a few meetings and projects to work on. And then in my job with Hubbard, I manage a team of individuals. And so we actually have a team building session. We've been going through looking at our strengths and weaknesses as a team and providing some constructive feedback. And we get to do that this afternoon, which I think is great. It doesn't matter if you're workers in a business or even on a farm. I mean, to look at what you're doing well and areas of improvement. I just enjoy doing that.
Well, have fun with that. I'm glad we could carve out some time to talk. Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciated this. This was great. Thank you.
My thanks to Lori Stevermer of Easton, Minnesota, and always good to hear what's happening with NPPC as well as farmers in general. Always glad to hear. If you have an idea for me, market to market at Iowa PBS, or my email, which is paul.yeager@iowapbs.org. Thank you so very much for watching, listening, or reading this. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.